Like, how would we send it to Coley? But
Oh,
there we go.
I think it is recording. I think we're
it
good.
says it's recording.
Oh,
Okay, cool. So we're going to talk running in college today, and the topics we're going to go over are the different levels of running in college. We have a nice cross section here today with us, and also like getting recruited / getting started with college running at any level, and also what the commitment and like a typical day can look like for each level. I'll also just add at the beginning here, Danny was supposed to be here. He runs D1 for UMass Lowell. And so we don't have anyone from D1 here today, but D1 is different from the other two divisions because you can get a full athletic scholarship to run D1. It's typically like the highest level of competition. However, there's obviously great competitors in all divisions. And yeah, if anyone has questions at the end about D1, we can try to field those, but we'll move on and start with James on his level of running in college.
Yeah, so as Julia kind of alluded to it, like D2 and D3, which I'll let Julia talk about that in a little bit, is very different from Division One. I'm a member of the Northeast 10 Conference, and if you can hear the landscaping outside, I'm sorry, it's really annoying. So I go to St. Michael's College up in Burlington, Vermont. It's a member institution of the NE10, and it's a pretty, like, it's very different from, your D1 expectations and stuff like that. It's pretty casual, pretty low key, especially at St. Mike's where I only have cross country, that we don't have a track team because of Title IX. So the budget is not going to be that big, and therefore scholarships aren't going to be a thing, at least at my school. In other D2 schools, they might be partial athletic scholarships, especially in cross country because it is one of the unfortunately lower funded sports. So there are always the possibility for them, but it's not a given. So if you are looking at D2, don't expect to get a full ride, maybe not even expect to get a half ride. It all depends on the school and their budget. And so one of the cool parts about running in a D2 school is that your life doesn't revolve around the sport. You have a lot of opportunity for other things. So you can enjoy a life outside of running. Like I said, since I only do one sport, I ski all winter, in addition to training, but like I don't have to worry about competing and stuff like that. And there's a real emphasis on academics. You're definitely a student athlete in every sense of that word, and community involvement. This picture right here is a picture of my teammate and some guy dressed up as Wonder Woman when we were helping out at a road race in the area. So we do a lot of things in the community to give back, to help out whenever we can. And that's one of the cool parts about being a Division II athlete is that you really don't have to worry about practice and training and stuff all the time. There are plenty of opportunities to do other things. And that's, one of the reasons why I chose to go D2.
There we go. All right. So I am a D3 athlete. I go to Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. It's a NESCAC school, which is the New England Small College Athletic Conference, which really just rolls off the tongue. So D3 is different from D1 and D2 in that you can't get an athletic scholarship at all. So there's no money tied to being an athlete, but being a recruited athlete at a D3 school can sometimes help your admission to the school. It did in my case. My coach was able to kind of put in a good word for me with admissions to kind of help me get into my school. I would say in my experience, I'm a student first and an athlete second. I find that being a student has been prioritized over being an athlete for me, and my coach has really pushed that by kind of like having meetings with us about like how our academics are going, especially early on in college, which I really liked. And it was the right fit for me because I wanted kind of like a balance of athletics, social life, and academics so that I could really kind of like be somewhere where I could do it all. And I've really found that at Trinity.
So yeah, I'm Audrey. I did club running at Northeastern my freshman year, and it's super flexible in terms of like the commitment. You do pay dues to be a part of the NERCA League, which is what a lot of club running teams that are competitive are a part of. and the dues were like $50 a semester or something like that. But I think the draw for club running for a lot of people is like still having that team vibe. Like they do a lot of social things like together on the weekends or after practices. And I thought that was really fun. I think for Northeastern, it's like a bigger commitment than I was expecting. So that's why I didn't end up sticking with it. But it was super fun. The people were great. I think if you are missing that like team environment in college, like especially early on, it's a really good way to sort of like have that part of your life. But then I've been running on my own ever since. And I think what makes that a lot easier is having like a race to train for or like a target, like time trial, or even something like that. Like I trained for a marathon my sophomore year. And I feel like if you're training for a race, then you can sort of fit like practice like by yourself basically into your schedule ahead of time rather than just sort of like approaching each day as like maybe I'll run today, maybe I won't, at least for me. And then like having an app like Runkeeper, Map My Run is like great to sort of keep track of all those things without like a coach. But I think the biggest thing or like the biggest piece of advice there is like to not hold yourself to like the same standards of like running in high school. Like if you're not running with other people and you don't have a coach, it's obviously a lot harder. And there's like tons of other stuff to do and experience in college. So it doesn't need to be like an everyday thing the way it was in high school.
Hi guys, I'm Maddie. So I go to Stonehill College in Massachusetts, and I do not run at the school or for the school, I mean. But so going into my freshman year, I definitely wanted to, keep up with running. So they had an activities fair and a club fair. So I went up to the club running team, the captains, and I put down my email. And every week they would send out a spreadsheet with either a time and like mileage, and who anyone could sign up, and like then it would be kind of group runs. So it was a little more laid back than Audrey's club running team, but it was still like a lot of fun. Like you met a lot of people, and if you couldn't make it to one time for that week, you could text one of the other girls or guys and be like, hey, like you want to go out for a run on this day if you can't make it to this time slot. Another piece that I'm going to talk about is like group exercise classes. A lot of schools have these through their recreational department. And I found like this super nice in case I didn't want to go running or I didn't have anyone to go running with. And I would, look at the group exercise classes schedule, and they offer like a lot of great alternatives. One I loved was cycling. And then lastly, finding areas near your campus to run. I would always like Google either state parks or, rail trails near my college, and then either reach out to someone that I knew and invite them. And so kind of made it like more of a fun aspect and like relaxed.
All right. So, if you wanna kind of get recruited or go Division II or wherever you want to go, you got to start somewhere. And that usually starts at the end of your junior year, kind of to your beginning of your senior year. For me, getting recruited and getting started was a pretty, as I say here, a pretty uninvolved process. I actually wasn't looking at St. Mike's at all to begin with. I kind of passed it over, and I went on their website one day and just decided to throw in a recruitment kind of, questionnaire just for the fun of it. And a couple of days later, I got an email back from the coach saying, we think you'd be a really good fit at the school. We recommend you come check it out. And so again, I was still like really not caring too much about it. I was like, who would ever want to go to school up in Vermont? It's so far away. It's so lame, so boring, whatever. But I went up and visited it, and it just like, I fell in love with it. And that's the thing. It's like, I didn't prioritize my running when I was looking at schools. I kind of considered it a bonus. I was looking at what programs would be good for me academically speaking, how the campus would kind of, feel to me, like if I got like a good vibe, if I'm in a bad vibe, whatever stuff you could get involved with, social life, all that sort of stuff was really important to me in addition to running. And so I went there and the campus was beautiful. It was a really small, kind of close-knit feel. And, that was pretty much it. And I decided almost then and there that this would probably be the school I would go to. And then eventually I told my coach, like, yeah, I'm going to come run here. And he said, all right, like, glad to have you aboard. So it was pretty uninvolved, as I said. And, I kind of directed it myself, but in the end it worked out.
All right, so I threw in some freshman year picks from some of my first meets here just for entertainment. But like James said, I think like initiating things yourself is really helpful, especially if you're not somebody who's like at the top of your state rankings, like for sure getting a D1 scholarship. I called it like recruiting myself. Every school I was interested in, I would fill out the recruitment questionnaire on their website or reach out to the coach, try to get in touch and see if I could meet with them when I was doing a campus visit. In this case, with COVID, you could ask for a Zoom call, which is honestly even easier for them to access. They're going to really respond to enthusiasm, especially if you're somebody who's kind of on the cusp of if you're going to be recruited / being a walk-on. Another thing that I felt was really important that I learned throughout the process was interpreting things coaches say to you. No coach is ever going to fully say no to you. Unless it's like an outlandish, like I think I was like emailing the coach from UConn. I had no shot getting onto the UConn team. And so the no response to my emails was a pretty solid no. But in most cases, you're not going to really hear anything. So it's important to look for if coaches that are recruiting you are willing to invest time in you. For example, I had like it was actually a D2 coach that I was talking to, and I was like, I would love to like come visit campus, meet some of the girls on the team and meet you and like talk. And she basically was like, you aren't one of our top recruits, so we're not going to put the time and money into that. But yeah, like I'll let you know if I'm at any of like the meets in Massachusetts and like we'll talk then. So that was like a soft no, and it was important to like kind of accept that and move forward and know that this is a school where I'm going to be treated like a priority, and that wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So like I mentioned, something that made the decision easy for me when I was deciding between schools, I was really interested in Tufts and Trinity, which are pretty similar. They're both NESCAC schools, but meeting the girls on the team was what really sold it for me. I just felt like I really clicked with my teammates at Trinity. And so I would recommend asking to do a Zoom call, meeting other people on the team to kind of help you make a decision when it comes down to it. Also, if you're interested in being a walk-on at a school, you're not somebody who's being recruited anywhere, but you've gotten into a school, you've decided on a school even, and you want to see if there's a possibility to join the cross country and track team at the school, definitely reach out and come off as best you can as someone who's really enthusiastic and willing to put in the work. In my case, my coach cares way more about that than how good of a runner somebody is in terms of like making a decision about if they're going to let them join the team. So I'd really recommend reaching out multiple times if you have to, and really showing that you're enthusiastic about it, because the worst thing you can get is a no.
So I obviously wasn't recruited, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about like alternatives. So for my school, like you would go on the athletics page and, you could look at the club sports, the intramural sports, and then like that way you could reach out to the captains or the coaches of those teams. And I thought that this was like a great alternative to, not being on a team at school. So I actually joined like the intramural volleyball team with like a couple of my friends, and like we had like so much fun, and like commitment like wasn't much. Like we'd practice like twice a week, and then like we'd play games once a week, and we just had so much doing it. And I think it was just like a great other option versus making a large commitment.
Okay, so a day in the life of a Division II athlete. This is pretty, I don't know, this is pretty, I guess, standard, at least if you're a St. Michael's College student. It's obviously gonna vary depending on where you are. But for me and my teammates, this sample day that I'm gonna go over is gonna look pretty much more or less the same. But what's really important, and as we've kind of all mentioned it, is just having a life outside of your running career, outside of your, your job, that is being on a member of the team. So I'm able to have that at St. Mike's. Like I'm a member of a couple clubs. I do intramural sports as well when I'm not in season. And then I have like a couple of campus jobs. Like I work as a writing tutor. I work in admissions. So you're able to do these things that you might not be able to if you're a Division I athlete, because it's a lot of a big time commitment, I should say. So this sample day is kind of, like I said, just a pretty typical St. Mike's cross country athlete. You might wake up at 9 and do homework for a couple hours, and then you have class for a couple hours in the afternoon. And then you have a couple hours in the middle of the day to relax, do homework, do what you got to do. I was injured this past winter and fall, so I was going to physical therapy at around like 3 o'clock every day. We do evening practices. Some teams will do morning, some will do like 3 o'clock, kind of just like high school. We do around 5:15 is when we start, because our coach isn't full time, which is also something that you might see at a lot of Division II or Division III schools, depending on, again, budget, finance, and stuff, is coaches might be part-time. So then, you eat dinner for about an hour, and then you just have time at night to do what you got to do, whether it's homework. If you're not into doing homework, just kind of goof off and hang out, watch TV. And if you want to prioritize your sleep schedule, get to bed at like midnight so you can wake up again at like 8, 9 o'clock and do it again. So it's pretty typical. This is pretty typical. It's not too bad. And it's definitely manageable, which is really important.
All right, so I threw in a bunch of pictures here to kind of show like all the things that I get to do outside of running, because I touched on how that balance is super important for me. But at the same time, I want to touch on also like the level of competition that I found at D3. And I think it's really great because there's like a really wide range of who I can compete against. I still see teams from D1, D2, and D3 and compete against them, D1 a little less, but pretty regularly. And so at all of my meets, like there's never been a lack of competition for people at like any speed on my team. There's still people who are running D1 level times in Division III. And then there's also people who are kind of just hoping to finish the race, who are able to run at their schools as well. And so there's kind of something for everyone. You're never going to be like a million miles behind or ahead in a race, I find. Also, similar schedule to what James just went over. I practice for like 2 to 3 hours a day in like the late afternoon. There's like a block. My school used to, before this coming semester, always have a 2 to 3 hour block where there were no classes scheduled. Now, because they're trying to do social distancing, we don't have that anymore, unfortunately. And then the biggest part of the commitment for me that was like a little bit more than high school was that all day Saturday is just running for me. I'm always at a meet. So there's sometimes that I have to make some sacrifices for my other activities. If something is a Friday night or Saturday during the day, I just know I can't make it. I've got to go to bed early before my meet, and then I've got my meet during the day. But I haven't felt that I've been super limited. I've been able to be a double major, and I have a job on campus. I'm in a sorority. There's nothing I haven't been able to do that I wanted to do at Trinity. So I've been really lucky that I didn't have to feel like I was making sacrifices to keep running. And the biggest advice I would have in general about running in college is to pick a school that you love. Obviously, I found a lot of things that I love about my school, and have running just be like a nice addition to it, instead of choosing a school purely for running and for like how good of a runner you think you can be there. I think it's really important to be happy with all aspects of it, as opposed to just doing it for track and cross country.
So I think like for my life at school, planning a schedule is super important. As James and Julia said, like they obviously have schedules that are a little more strict. But for me, you have class, homework, studying, and then like lastly, like I'll go out running, or like I'll go, work out, and that's usually that's like my last priority, which is nice. It's a little more relaxed. And then I try like every day, like I'll text one of my friends and like we can either go running together, either on campus or near campus, which is super nice because Stonehill is in a residential area. And then lastly, I have to say like have fun and just like try new things at school. Yeah.
All right. If there's any questions, we can do that now. We obviously covered a lot.